Hey everyone, how you doing? Wade McElwain here from NFL in London. Joining me, Will Gavin, Ryan Cull, and Edo Delamonte. Now we're going to talk about some of the big stories that happened because week 2 was a very big week for a lot of us. A lot of people were very angry week 2. I was very angry, fantasy-wise. A lot of few stories that went out, but I'm going to touch on the first one, guys. The first one was 7 top running backs were injured. Some of them could be for careers, some of them just for a couple weeks. Who do you think was the most impactful injury? Was it AP? Was it Stewart? Was it Martin?
I think you're overestimating when you say top running backs were injured.
Well, Danny
Woodhead.
Woodhead.
These running backs were nothing like, no, my team. I think other than Adrian Peterson, I think a lot of of course Danny Woodhead hurts, but Danny Woodhead always gets hurt every single year. Again, you have Abdullah. He still wasn't proven to be the guy. Theo Riddick's looked great. And again, it's just one guy after the next. But Adrian Peterson is obviously the number one. It doesn't matter if he's been struggling, if his yards carry. You still have to game plan for Adrian Peterson. You're not game planning for Danny Woodhead. Okay, you're not game planning for
You should, but you're probably not.
But you're not. That's probably why he does so well, because nobody wants to game plan with him. So I think Adrian Peterson is absolutely going to hurt. Again, we can keep going this. I don't know why Minnesota doesn't make a plan B for this. Like why they've been going with McKinnon and Asiata for the last 2-3 years. It's like they've ignored it, and this keeps happening. Either he's getting suspended for personal conduct issues, but it's like they've completely ignored it. It's like the teams that ignore quarterback, like the Browns, and now they're in this situation. It's like, well, why don't you ever draft a quarterback? Maybe you wouldn't be in this situation. You wouldn't be so scared if you had that young gun who's pushing Adrian Peterson. Maybe he needs that guy looking over his shoulder a bit. So I think, without a doubt, it's going to make Sam Bradford's job harder, and it's just going to make Minnesota. They were probably favored to win the division with Adrian Peterson. Now they're looking at wild card at best.
Edo, who do you think the biggest running back story of the last week is?
It's hard to argue with Adrian Peterson, and it's quite a surprise that a lot of these guys have gone down. And for some reason, like Ryan Matthews and DeMarco Murray are still upright, but it's not going to last very
We got Arian
long.
Foster, Doug Martin, Thomas Rawls. All these guys got hurt. Some of them, for a little bit. Some of them, it's a big thing for a lot of these teams. Doug Martin's
a close second because actually Tampa Bay, there was a lot of mixing it with the run last year, which helped Jameis be a bit selective. And he loves to force the ball anyway, so we're going to see a lot more of that this season. I really am very confident in Jameis' abilities, or quarterbacking anyway. That's going to be a big one. I still think Peterson, because it was such a kick in the groin after you lost Teddy. I'm not so convinced in Bradford. I do think that the shine is going to wear off there quite quickly. I still think Zimmer is good enough to game plan his way to 10-6, and then who knows? Even potentially without Peterson, although, when Peterson comes back, I still think 10-6 is just about right, but... It was still so horrible because, with McKinnon and Asiata, there's one thing I will say. So when they had a young Teddy Bridgewater and they lost Peterson to that whole hitting his kid incident, don't hit your kids.
It depends. Some of your kids are bad. Some of your kids out there are bad.
Public service announcement, they were still able to get Teddy to release the ball quickly, and they got those two guys to just about earn enough yardage. Minnesota was still pretty decent. So... No, I still think Peterson is bad because they've gone from Super Bowl contender to division, and then we'll see.
To Bears.
And it's, and that division's a mess.
To the Bears. Hey, I'm a Bears fan. I can say that.
That division looks a mess.
I was saying that you were slagging off the Vikings too much. Nothing
No. The Bears always come back second. What do you think, Will? Who's the big one here? I mean, Arian Foster's a big one as well.
Yeah, they're bang on with AP. I think Arian Foster's an interesting one because actually he looked really good through the first kind of week and a half of the season. Much better than I ever expected him to coming off that injury. Still showed good twitch. Still showed he could turn the corner. Still showed he could cut. Impressive stuff, but... There's two interesting ones for me, and you mentioned Doug Martin already, but Amir Abdullah as well. Not necessarily because of their immediate impact on the team as individuals, but because they both worked in a really good 1-2 punch. You've got Theo Riddick at the Lions, you've got Charles Sims at the Bucks, and you've got that obvious passing back, you've got that obvious guy who can carry it up the middle, who can cut to the outside, and I just don't know how Sims and Riddick are going to manage it without those guys there. Theo Riddick has been the more impressive back at the Lions so far this year, but there are very few downs where Theo Riddick is in on his own. Quite often it's when they're playing 2 back sets or 2 tight end sets, or so it's going to be interesting to see how they work that situation out. They really like this kid, Dwayne Washington, the rookie, and Zach Zenner had a lot of love from Lions fans coming into the season, so they think they've got good backup options there, but those are going to be the interesting ones for me to see this weekend.
Oh, here's another couple of hot topics, just a quick points from you guys on these ones. Seattle, is it over? Seattle, have they got a problem?
15 points on offense over 2 weeks. I think they have a problem.
Yeah, they definitely have a problem.
Losing to LA.
Like, Russell Wilson's clearly not healthy. Doug Baldwin was not going to be the Doug Baldwin of last year. Like, he just went off in those last 3 or 4 weeks. And I think those 14 touchdowns were misrepresented. I don't think, a bit of a fluke, because he had never been that guy. He was like your classic 900-yard guy. And then all of a sudden they just went off for a couple weeks. You know, again, Rawls and Michael, I'm still not convinced that either of them are that good. They're not good enough. Like, Rawls had a couple good games last year. He hasn't been healthy all year. And they're just forcing them in, and they have no identity on offense right now, and it's just no one's scared of them. Defense is still great. They're shutting down people. They're keeping it close, but if your team's scoring 6 points a game, like, but you can't ask your defense to score pitch shutouts every week. You have to get touchdowns.
They started very slowly last year. That is the one thing to remember.
This is really slow, though.
It was more on the defensive side of it. I think Earl Thomas was out for the first 3 or 4 weeks, and even when he came back, didn't look like the Earl Thomas that we thought he was, or think he is and know he is. But I think their defense will keep them in it and keep them in the division. But yeah, the offense is a concern for me, and it doesn't get huge amounts easier. Oh no, wait, they're playing San Francisco this week. They'll be fine.
I would say it's not finished just because, well, Russell Wilson is 4-5 lifetime against the Rams, which is why I want that franchise to be nuked, quite frankly, because Jess Fisher is a waste of everyone's time, including mine as a Seahawks fan. 7-9. There we go. I'm not going 7-9. I'm not going. Yeah, you are. Yeah. Actually, you're going 5-11. So good luck to you. The Miami win, was it 12-10? We've seen those before from Seattle. They always seem to start their season just a little bit slowly.
Since he entered the league, he does have the most come from behind wins, most fourth quarter winning drives of any quarterback. Him and Andrew Luck are around the same area, but you only have to come back in games if you're losing games. That's the thing. Like, it's a bit of an outlier of a stat.
Now, you mentioned, we'll quickly pop onto this topic as well. We're talking about San Francisco. Blaine Gabbert played horribly. Colin Kaepernick, we mentioned, has been more known for what he's doing off the field. Is it going to be a time if Blaine Gabbert blows it again? Are you going to have to bring in Colin Kaepernick soon?
Yeah, of course. Of course, you're going to have to. Like, people are going to want to see Kaepernick. People want to see if there's still, like, almost with RG3 a couple years ago, when it's like, we got to throw him in one more time to see if this can work again. Yeah. Because it worked so well for a couple of years, just like in Washington, it worked so well. And you don't want to give up. You know, he's still making tons of money for a backup quarterback. And he's still actually, compared to other quarterbacks in the league, relatively cheap, actually.
And healthy.
And if you can get him back on track, you know, the only concern is will the off-field stuff be an issue, and is that going to affect, which I don't think it will. If anything, go with it and see if we can ride this momentum. Maybe he's like the leader America needs. Can we
get a late entry to the presidential?
There we go, exactly.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I think he's an incredibly quiet guy around the locker room. Having spent some time out in San Francisco 2 years ago, it's no huge interaction with Colin Kaepernick with anyone outside of the time when they're in training. Whereas now, you're seeing players rally around him, they're with him, they're kneeling alongside him, players of other teams as well, and actually him speaking quite eloquently and quite openly about stuff as well. I've been more impressed with him as an off-the-field entity than I ever have been before. But until he gets out there and I can see that he can go through more than one read and that he can read the right situation to run and to not run, until all those frustrating things that a 49ers fan you had to watch week in, week out. It's one of the most difficult quarterbacks to watch in the NFL because he will throw a beautiful 80-yard bomb down the field, and then he will overthrow a guy who's 6 yards away from him and wide open.
Well, he did. It took a lot of pressure on him, and it also was a good move for him to appear on South Park. I thought that was really good. Really good for your reputation. Look, guys, those are some of the top stories of the week. Come down and visit us. We're all going to be at the Hippodrome Casino this Sunday, and play along with the DraftKings contest. You can win big. 2 tickets to the international game. Just play along. Go to draftkings.co.uk/hippo. See you Sunday.